Since 1960, while Kenya's per capita income has basically doubled, has increased by 100%, South Korea has achieved income growth of 23 times. So it's at the top of the league, so to speak. It's been the star performer. Now, before you get a little depressed about Kenya's rather slow performance, I'd like you to look at the bottom of that league. If you look at the Philippines, which is in East Asia, but its per capita income over the last 55 years has increased by only 2.5%, 2.5 times, I'm sorry. So Kenya is not very far behind the Philippines. It's not entirely out of the Premier League, so to speak. So the question is, how do you get in there and how do you move up to the top of the league? Industrial sector was the high-scoring forwards. But we tend to forget that South Korea, for instance, had a very strong defense as well, and that was smallholder agriculture. Go back one more, please, maybe. Yes. So what did South Korea do? South Korea started with land reform. Between 1945 and 64, the percentage of farmers who owned land increased from 10%, a little over 10%, to 70%. Almost every farmer became a small farmer, owning their own land. The average farm size was only slightly over 2 acres, not very different from Kenya today, I would imagine. The government raised the prices of rice in particular, which was the key commodity, to a competitive level so that farmers had incentives to increase rice production. And government also supported small farmers with increased fertilizer supplies, extension services, and infrastructure. So what happened? In the 15 years from 1960 to 75, which was the beginning of the fast growth phase of South Korea, agricultural output almost doubled, increased by 92% to be exact. In the meantime, the population increased by only a little over 40%. So the obvious result was there was great contribution to food security. There was more food being produced than population was growing. It also produced rural surplus, which helped to generate savings as well as demand for consumer goods and helped industrialization. Now, what happened in Kenya in the last 25 years, say, during which time Kenya has been trying to accelerate growth, agricultural output has increased by 80-some percent, 85%. But the population has increased even more than that. It has basically doubled. Now, do you see a bit of food insecurity problem there? I would say that large-scale commercial farms will not really solve the food insecurity problem because it will increase food supply, but it will not increase the purchasing power. Food insecurity problem is more a problem of people not being able to afford food or not being able to produce food, not about absolute physical supply of food. On the other hand, if you expand support for smallholder agriculture, it contributes to food security right away, because more farmers are able to produce enough food for themselves and perhaps even some surplus, which contributes to food security nationwide. And as I pointed out in the case of South Korea, it'll begin to create demand for domestic industries, or increase the demand for domestic industries. So, given this, I do really think emphasis should be on transforming smallholder farming. So what can the governors or counties do? Last slide, please. I think national government has tended to focus on large-scale agricultural schemes like Galana irrigation project. Perhaps it is more convenient for the national government because it's one big project, but county governments can focus on smallholder farming. They can prepare farmers for more commercial but small-scale farming and really help them at the local level. So it seems to me there are two things the governors could be doing. One is to convince the national government to reallocate its resources more toward small-scale, localized irrigation schemes. Second is to make sure the counties have the capacity to provide effective extension services, because knowledge is central to successful agriculture. So I hope with the right focus on the transformation of agriculture, Kenya can move into what I call the Premier League of fast growth and really move up in the ranking and perhaps beat South Korea one day. Thank you.